Everyone in life has goals. In the die-cast model airplane hobby, these goals almost always start with the words to collect. To collect North American models, to collect retro models, or to collect niche models and obscure airlines and aircraft. There's always something to pursue in this hobby, and with the wide variety of brands that have existed for the past 25 plus years, plus the many defunct brands and the new brands popping up seemingly every day, these goals are becoming easier to accomplish. My to collect goal is focused on North American models, a market well represented by the likes of Gemini Jets, NG Models, and all the other big name manufacturers. Over the last several years, my interest in retro models has grown at least tenfold, meaning that manufacturers like Aero Classics have become increasingly important in helping me satisfy this craving. In that same time, though, I have become very passionate about collecting one particular airline, North Central Airlines. When I got my first North Central model in early 2022, I thought it would be my only model of the airline for a long time. But as we've seen before, a story rooted in humble beginnings turns into something way more. A story with plot twists and epic adventures. A story of highs and lows. A story of perseverance. Let's take a look at this story, Herman's Odyssey, my quest to collect every single North Central Airlines model in 1 to 400 scale. To tell this story, we need to go back to the beginning. It's 2022, and I am entering a major transitional phase in my life. I'm about to graduate high school in a few short months. The unknown challenges of college loom large. In between the anxieties of major life changes ahead, I spend most nights researching defunct airlines and retired aircraft, gaining a better understanding of retro aviation. I had always been fascinated by the history of many things in our world, finding answers to questions like, what did certain locations look like in the past? If it was a building, what tenants previously owned the place? Did that restaurant on the corner of South Dakota's busiest intersection change hands before, or was it all one tenant, like a Wendy's, for its entire existence? Or what did the highways used to look like in the past? Were there any changes to the intersections with major streets or other highways? Most notably, in Sioux Falls, Interstate 29 was rebuilt in the early 2000s with new traffic lanes and new and redesigned exits for a better flow of traffic. I have done so many Google searches on random nights when I was bored to figure out stuff just like this. Then I started researching some details on my home airport in Sioux Falls. While information was a bit scattered, I eventually came across resources like departed flights and an archive of the official airport website to find out data on past airline flights in the area. Thus, I began a major project. Following my acquisition of a Northwest Airlines Douglas DC-950 made by Aero Classics, I debuted the Retro FSD project with an airport update set in 2004. I was super fascinated with what airlines and aircraft types had come through Sioux Falls throughout the years, from the legendary Douglas DC-3 that opened air travel to the world, to the Douglas DC-9 and Boeing 737 that helped bring jet aircraft to many smaller communities across the United States, to the modern aircraft like the CRJ and other regional aircraft that have shaped the current aviation landscape. Airlines like Western, Frontier, Ozark, TWA, and others also flew through here with their fair share of aircraft types. But the story of Retro FSD is for another time. What's more important for this video is one airline that made me super passionate about not just itself, but for retro aviation as a whole.
Let me take you through the sunshine to a new place maybe you've never been before.
North Central Airlines was one of many local service carriers that operated back in the mid-20th century. The airline was founded in 1944 as Wisconsin Central Airlines and focused on intrastate routes in Wisconsin. After several years of growth and success, the airline moved to Minneapolis and became North Central Airlines in 1952. They quickly grew their fleet of DC-3s and expanded their operations across the Upper Midwest. By the 1960s, North Central had added the Douglas DC-9 to their fleet, and their route network was still growing rapidly, now with hubs in Minneapolis and Detroit, as well as Milwaukee and Chicago O'Hare. Because of their classification as a local service carrier, their operations were mostly exclusively in the Upper Midwest, though as the airline grew further, they were able to start operations to regions like the Northeast, Rocky Mountains, and even flew to Florida in later years. What made this airline even more exciting to me was that I had personal connections to it. One relative was a pilot for North Central, and another relative once worked for them as a flight attendant. While I never got the chance to meet either person in my life to hear their perspectives on North Central, I know they would have wanted to say many positive things about the airline. In 1979, North Central merged with Southern Airways to form Republic Airlines, the first airline merger in the United States after airline deregulation. Their logo was exactly that of North Central, due to them being the dominant carrier in the merger. Some logos I found showed two ducks to symbolize the two merging airlines. In fact, the Herman the Duck logo was once an internationally recognized logo, as Robert Serling pointed out in his book Ceiling Unlimited, The Story of North Central Airlines. A study conducted on airline symbol recognition placed North Central ahead of every airline but Pan Am. In all fairness, though, Pan Am was pretty hard to beat in every aspect. Republic Airlines became the largest airline in the country by number of destinations, especially when they bought out Hughes Air West in 1980 to gain a presence out west. Unfortunately, Republic struggled financially and had to dismantle a majority of the original airline's operations, closing the Phoenix hub operated by Hughes Air West, cutting a majority of flights at Southern's former hub in Atlanta, and removing many small communities in the Upper Midwest previously served by North Central. After a rebranding in the mid-80s, Republic was acquired by Northwest Orient in 1986, who shortly rebranded to just Northwest after the merger, and then Northwest was acquired by Delta in 2008. Some of North Central's DC-950s operated with Delta up to the early 2010s, making them the final North Central aircraft to fly commercially in the United States. With the background information established, let's take a look at how North Central Airlines has grown into an integral part of my collection. With my love of North Central Airlines growing by the minute, I was desperate to locate 1 to 400 models of them to buy. Unfortunately, they proved difficult to find. Searching eBay and other online retailers yielded no results. Any results I did find, however, were way too expensive, so I quickly learned the value North Central models carry in this scale. However, in early April of 2022, I was able to locate a North Central model at a 2-digit price for the first time, a Douglas DC-950 made by the Seattle Model Aircraft Company. This manufacturer, also known as SMA, started operations in 2002 with ties to Aeroclassics. They made their own molds rather than using existing ones, and started with the Boeing 737-200. Eventually, they added other aircraft types, including the DC-950, but by 2004, things got sour behind the scenes. Sporadic releases capped off the year, and the company ceased operations not long after as a result. The DC-950 was the last aircraft type North Central operated, taking delivery of their first example, November 760 November Charlie, in April of 1976. This particular airframe, November 772 November Charlie, was taken up by North Central in September of 1978. As with most DC-9s for the airline, she went to Republic, then Northwest, and finally to Delta. She was scrapped sometime after 2011. This model was listed by Waffle Collectibles on a collection sale for $80. At the time, I was reluctant to spend that much on a model. I sat there for a while, and I even told some friends that I wasn't going to buy it due to the price. But after giving it some thought, knowing that another chance to acquire this model might not come again for a long time, I gave in. What I decided to do in the spur of the moment, though, was to prank my friends about it. I didn't tell them that I changed my mind, and thus got bombarded with memes sent in the group chat once they found out that it had been sold. Here's a highlight reel of those because they're kind of funny, even if a little outdated. Do I regret pulling this prank on my friends? A little, but they found it funny in the end. What mattered most out of this is I got the model. About a week later, it arrived in my collection. This was the first model out of a total 8 that existed at the time. This SMA model, released in April of 2004, was the first time that North Central appeared in 1:400 scale. This particular livery has been nicknamed the Aqua livery for its distinct light blue cheat line. 3 years went by before another North Central release, when 4 came out in 2007. Aeroclassics released 2 Republic Hybrid Douglas DC-930s, while Netmodel did an Aqua livery DC-930. Aeroclassics followed that up with a release of their own in June. In 2016, Aeroclassics released a Convair 340, wearing the carrier's modern feather livery from the early 1960s. As of 2025, this is the only North Central model to be released in another livery than Aqua. Then, in June of 2019, Gemini Jets threw their hat into the ring with an Aqua Convair 580. 2020 saw Aeroclassics release a DC-950, similar to the SMA release, but with a different registration. When I started looking for North Central models, it had already been 2 years since that last release, and I thought, we're overdue for another one. When I got my first North Central model, I didn't intend to collect every single one. My goal was to acquire one of each of the DC-930 and Stretch-50 and a Convair 580. I was hoping to get a DC-3 as well, but then I realized no one had done it yet, so I had to put that type off the table. Once I found out about the modern feather Convair 340 by Aeroclassics, though, I also put it on my checklist. I ended up finding an eBay listing of it in the fall of 2022, but unfortunately I lost out on that bid at the last second. Back to April, with the DC-950 now in hand, Herman the Duck now had a presence in my collection. It was time to grow the fleet. The next North Central model acquisition came in the Christmas of 2022. Whilst assembling my Christmas list, I put a strong emphasis on models for the Retro FSD project, one of them being the North Central Convair 580. I found an eBay listing of one in the fall of 2022. This particular aircraft, registered November 2041, started her life as a Convair 440 model for National Airlines in 1956. She had an incident in 1968, a crash landing in Michigan. She was then converted to a 580 model, which features upgraded Allison turboprop engines, and simultaneously transferred to North Central. She was re-registered to November 580 November in 1975, and then went to Republic 4 years later. She flew for a couple of private operators in the 1980s before her U.S. registration was canceled. Then she went to Canada, registered Charlie-Foxtrot Tango Alpha Papa, flying for Time Air starting in 1990, then Can Air Cargo in 1994, and then Nolanor Aviation in 1998. Her latest update was posted in 2021, where she was transferred to Airspray Air Tankers in Canada as a parts-only aircraft. The model was for a great price on eBay, so I was able to check that off. I was still a little upset at not getting the Aeroclassics Convair, since I found this Gemini Jets model at about the same time, but the latter would suit me well for the time being. I wouldn't use it in an airport update until I made my 1979 airport update video in 2024. My next North Central acquisition came at Airliners International in 2023. At that show in Dallas, Texas, I bought a handful of models for the Retro FSD project, like an Aero Classics Ozark DC-910 and a Western Boeing 727-200 by Gemini Jets. On the first day of the show, I picked up my first DC-930 for North Central. My friend Connor texted me during the show when he found it, so I ran over to the private vendor table to take a look at it. This won't be the first time you'll hear his name in this video, wink wink. As for the model he found, it ended up being the Polished Republic hybrid livery, one of several that existed. Registered November 9061 November, she began her life with North Central in 1969 as the 11th DC-9 for the airline. She was used as a testbed for a new livery, which would be modified and adopted by Republic in 1979. She then flew for them and then Northwest for the next 36 years. She was last registered in 2008 wearing Northwest's final livery and then scrapped. The model was about $40, so I decided why not. I haven't used this in a Retro FSD video though, since North Central stopped flying the DC-9s to Sioux Falls in favor of their Convair 580s late into their existence, and Operation Republic would continue. 3 down, 5 to go. I now had one of each North Central aircraft type, minus the older Convair model, that existed in 1 to 400 scale at the time. By this point, I was mostly satisfied with the state of my North Central fleet. But I was still wondering, when would the next North Central model come out? It's now been 3 years. As they say, patience is a virtue. The first chunk of 2024 flew by quickly. My spring semester came and went rapidly, and when I got home to begin my summer break, another North Central model was there waiting for me. About a week earlier, I had found a pair of North Central models on eBay. Both were DC-930s, but one was made by Aero Classics and another was made by Net Models. I decided to go with the latter, seeing as A, I didn't have one of their models in my collection yet, and B, it was cheaper than the Aero Classics one. It's a decision I thought about for a while, but I chose the unique manufacturer over the more recognizable one, a decision that opened the window for something more exciting later on. Net Models produced over 400 models in a 10-year span between 2002 and 2012. This DC-9 was produced in 2007, smack dab in the middle of their existence. November 9052 November, the registration Net Models chose for this release, started flying for North Central in 1967, becoming the second DC-9 to fly for the airline. Like the previous DC-9 model I bought, she went to Republic in 1979, then Northwest in 1986, but she was retired much earlier in 2002, then scrapped for parts in 2005. Now halfway through the process, I started to reconsider if I should collect all North Central models in the scale. I was already halfway there with the current available fleet. But on May 11th of 2024, the decision came at the hands of a great friend of mine. Remember Connor from when I got my third North Central model in 2023? Well, he was in attendance for the Spring Chicago Airline Collectible Show that day, one of many collectible shows he attended that year. I was in the midst of recording a video with another content creator when I received a text from Connor. He asked me if I had a model that he found yet. It was the Aero Classics North Central DC-930 I had passed on 2 weeks ago.
I was actually selling models at this show, which was pretty fascinating. I'd never done that to that point. So that being said, I didn't have much time to surf around the trade floor. But fortunately, when I finally did get a chance to do so, which I still cannot believe that this opportunity presented itself, considering that this was like towards the end of the show. But anyway, there was this one table and there was dozens of Aero Classics, Dragon Wings, older aircraft. So I just start looking through them because you never know what you're going to find. And I knew that JJ got the net models version, the DC-930, like literally a week before. And I'm looking through all these boxes and I see this $30 sticker on another North Central aircraft. And I'm almost 99% sure that he doesn't have this aircraft, but of course I need to text him to verify that. So I asked him, and he's like, no, I don't have it, but I just got the net models. I asked him if he wanted me to buy it for him, and he said, no need to do that. I was like, dude, you're going to get all the North Central planes, I promise, and I'm going to buy you this, and I'm going to bring it to you. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened.
I couldn't be more thankful for his gift. I never expected him to do something like that, but knowing the price for this model, it was too easy to pick it up.
You needed it. That's exactly what we talked about when you set out on this edition and you told me, your relations and sentimental value to North Central. I was like, there's literally only going to be a handful of aircraft that you could get in 1 to 400 scale. So if you've already got 5 at that point, we need to get to the finish line. We're already halfway there. So you need it, regardless if you're not going to pay me back or not. I'm going to get it for you and I'm going to give it to you. And that's exactly what I did.
Following the Chicago Airline Collectible Show, this model would embark on an incredible journey, telling one hell of a story, traveling to places no aircraft with North Central colors ever went. It went back to Connor's home in Oklahoma for a few weeks, appearing in one of his massive unboxing videos. Then it joined him on his 2-week summer trip to Europe in early June, flying to places like London, Helsinki, Warsaw, and everywhere in between. Connor returned to the United States after, visiting another good friend of mine and going to more fun places like Orlando, Indianapolis, and Detroit before arriving at that year's Airliners International Convention in Kansas City towards the end of June, after logging more than 18,000 miles, where it landed in my hands. This is where my goal to collect all North Central models became a reality. This aircraft, registered November 9043 November, started operations for North Central in 1975 and was the 21st DC-9 for the airline. While she went to Republic and Northwest like the previous DC-930s, she was converted to a DC-932 model in 1991 from a DC-931, featuring an increased maximum takeoff weight. She even flew for Delta starting in 2009, albeit not painted in Delta colors. She was scrapped in 2013. Time passes by so fast. 2013 was 11 years ago at this time. 2020 was already 4 years past. That was the last time a North Central model had been released in 1 to 400 scale. When would that change? I often asked. This time, I wouldn't have to wait much longer. It's now early June, a few weeks after the Chicago Airline Collectible Show. I was out of town visiting family, and I had caught wind of an upcoming Aeroclassics announcement, which would be happening at the time that I arrived at my destination. I had been told on an online forum that I would be very happy with what they had in the pipeline this month. I found a private room to record my reaction to the new releases, and I got this gem. Oh my god, I see North Central! I see North Central down there at the bottom. Oh my god. North Central DC-950. This is so this is the Republic Hybrid livery. And they did do Herman too. Let's go! Yes. Love that. Oh my god, I'm actually going to have to order something from Aeroclassics. That is unbelievable. A new North Central model for the first time in 4 years. In this case, it was another Republic Hybrid on a DC-950. Similar to the shorter Dash 30 series I acquired in 2023. This airframe ended up with the distinction of being the last aircraft to be delivered to North Central, registered November 777 November Charlie, as the next aircraft, November 778 November Charlie, was taken up by Republic. Aeroclassics also released this model in the same announcement. I quickly pre-ordered the North Central and got it a couple weeks later, shortly before Mother Nature made it rain on me for the next several days, prior to my departure for Kansas City. Now with 5 of the 9 models in 1 to 400 scale, it was time to hunt down the remaining models. I needed the Aeroclassics Convair 340, Douglas DC-930 White Top Hybrid, and the Douglas DC-950 2020 release. With another one guaranteed to arrive in due time, it would make the quest a little easier. Still a quest that would be difficult, but with time can be completed. Airliners International 2024 came, and my Aeroclassics Aqua DC-930 arrived from Connor after its incredible journey. 6 down, 3 to go. Fast forward to November 2024. I was on my computer at home late one night when I was alerted to 2 North Central models that had been posted by Squatchy's diecast hangar, an Aeroclassics DC-930 with a white top hybrid livery, which I didn't have yet, and the Gemini Jets Convair 580, which I already have. This DC-9, registered November 9 or 6-3 November, was the 13th DC-9 operated by North Central, starting in 1969. She ended her career in 2005 after flying with Republic and Northwest and was scrapped just a few years later. Squatchies had the DC-9 listed for $55, and like with the SMA DC-950 I first acquired, hesitancy was the name of the game. After that same friend bombarded my messages with pleas for me to buy it, I gave in, knowing my quest at hand. That's now 7 acquired, with 2 models remaining. Number 8 arrived in February 2025. This was the Douglas DC-950 Aeroclassics made in 2020, and with this jet joining my collection, I have completed the existing Jet North Central fleet in 1-400 scale. This aircraft, November 761 November Charlie, joined North Central's fleet in April of 1976, just 6 days after the first airframe was delivered. She finished her career with Delta in December 2009 and was scrapped in 2011. I found her on eBay early one morning before class on an eBay shop I've never heard of, Model Train Market. As per their name, they specialize in various scale model trains for the train enthusiasts, but they also sell a select range of model airplanes. I thought about it for a few minutes in my half-asleep stance. Remembering my goal, I snatched her up for $75, including tax and shipping. Not bad for a model which I hadn't seen pop up on eBay before. With 8 down and 1 to go, it was time to hunt for the final model, the Convair 340 that eluded me in 2022 on a last-second snipe by another eBay user. When would the time come for this bird to join my collection? I anticipated a long and grueling wait. What about this bird in real life? Well, she has quite the storied career. She started her life with Continental Airlines in 1953, registered November 900855. After flying with them for 6 years, she went to North Central and rocked Herman colors with them and Republic for the next 26 years. Her next operator after that was Simmons Airlines, a regional airline that later became American Eagle Airlines, now Envoy Air. She then operated for a couple of private operators in 1985 before heading to Canada, now registered as Charlie-Golf Quebec Bravo November. She then flew for Intercanadian until 1991, when she went to cargo operator Conifair Aviation. She was last seen in 2022, mostly scrapped, but still wearing her Intercanadian colors. I set up a safe search on eBay for North Central models, in hopes of locating the Convair 340. I still check back daily for new listings, and also making sure I didn't miss any using eBay's completed listings filter for North Central models. Time passed by. Classwork suddenly caught up to me. I had a couple big projects that I was working on. I completed one of them on a cold Thursday morning just before class. I had been pretty stressed about it, but I knew how to handle big projects like these before, so I powered through. I arrive at my sole class of the day. I was rocking my North Central Airlines hat. I've had it since I attended the 2023 MSP Airline Collectible Show, my first and to date only regional collectible show that I've attended. Little did I know, this hat would act as a good luck charm. Naturally, I decided to check out the Model Train Market website. I had done this a couple times before, and I noticed the listings for model airplanes were identical to what they posted on eBay. They probably run a similar ship to Waffle Collectibles, listing models on their main storefront before posting it on eBay sometime later to see if it will sell. That's how I found the Aeroclassics DC-950 after all. I opened up their 1-400 scale section, well away from their model trains. And amazingly, the third result on the first page was the model I had been looking for. There she was, the North Central Convair 340. But look at that price. Worse still, the model had damage, a broken landing gear. This wasn't my first time encountering an Aeroclassics Convair with a broken landing gear though, as my Western Convair 240 had the exact same issue. It was a very tedious process to fix the gear, and I decided to document this on the model airliner forum just for fun. The price, combined with the damage, made me really stop and think about it this time. I leaned towards not getting the model. I was afraid of what would happen when the model arrived. But, after 2.5 years of trying to find this model again, I finally did it. Would it take me another 2.5 years, possibly longer, to find her again if I passed on this? I messaged a couple friends to get their thoughts. Simultaneously, my seatmate arrived, and while he didn't know a single thing about model airplanes, he told me to do whatever, which sounded like I should buy it. My friends said something similar. It took me 2.5 years to find this model again. The last time, it was sniped away from me on a last-second bid. I didn't want this to happen again. So I asked myself the question again. Would it take me 2.5 years, possibly longer, to find her again? I had spent 3 years finding all the North Central models, taking whatever opportunities I got to buy them up. I found the first 2 models on my own, the third alerted to me by a friend, the fourth on an eBay search, the fifth on a new release, the sixth on an incredible gift, the seventh on another friend alert, and the eighth on a random early morning find. So, would I get another chance to buy this Convair 340? Only time would tell the tale, and I wasn't wanting to wait any longer to complete the fleet. I was this close, 1 model away from completing the current North Central Airlines fleet. So, my decision was made. I went back to the model page and clicked Add to Cart, and completed my purchase. Alright, just got back home after another week of college. So I've got this airport I need to do, which you'll see this video, of course, by the time this one comes out. So I need to get that set up yet since I haven't done it. I also got this package that just came in the mail. Well, actually came in a few days ago because I was up at school, so could not open it right away. But that fleet right there, my friends, will be completed in just a few short moments. Time to get set up and get this unboxing done. Super excited about it. I tell you, this is just amazing to have. Look at this. Got the Convair right there. Got my other DC-9s, and then more over here, along with the lone Convair that I have up to this point. But yeah, as you can tell, there is some damage, and fortunately, they did include the gear with it, so should be a very easy process to fix it. Still got the recording going, so let's get this camera adjusted. Get this puppy unboxed. I am super excited to get this out of the box and have it in my hands. But look at that. Wow, my first time seeing this in the flesh. This modern feather livery is really beautiful in person. A little dirty on the top there, but you know, at this point, I've been looking for this darn thing for 2.5 years. Now let's round up all the North Central models, put them together in a frame, and I'll talk a little bit about what you can expect with Herman's Odyssey. This is more bonus footage going in. This is me setting up the display here for all of the North Central models. This is before I have fixed the... Jeez Louise, that was a fighter jet just flew right over my house. But there is the main landing gear. This is the one that snapped off, and I'll show you the damage a little more closely here. Let's try to get that into focus. So there is the landing gear, and you can see it's all in one piece, which is excellent news. So all I have to do is just attach that onto the model in question, and we will be golden. But now the last piece of the puzzle to put onto the stand here, if I can find the piece here. Looks like actually this one does not fit, so I'm going to have to swap out the models here. So put the Aero Classics one here, and then if this one would fit, that would be fantastic, but it looks like I am having some real struggles. As I continued setting up the display, disaster struck. I knew that was going to happen. Oh no. My Convair 580 fell off the stand as I was unable to properly secure it in there, resulting in the propeller coming off and the gear falling out. Just like my 340. And this is what happens. You don't take care of your models and then you break the other Convair. It's really irritating, but it looks like, hey, both Convairs get to enter our repair process, so I guess that's certainly something. Was not intending for it to be that way, but at least this Convair is in immaculate condition, minus the broken gear there, and this Convair will be fixed up as well, so I'm gonna get these all tidied up now, so you'll get to see that here right now. The repair process was tedious for the 580, and despite a shoddy repair job, she still sits flush and isn't any more tail-heavy than before. The 340, however, was a lot easier, with a dab of superglue that it all needed to plop the gear into place. I would say my repair job was better than how the other gear came out of the factory, but you can barely tell it from a glance anyway, so I digress. Dun 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 dun! She is fixed up and looking beautiful. A little bit crooked there on the one side, but you know, for it just being on my own and having no assistance and my first time doing it by myself, I can't complain at all. This is just amazing. Super happy to finally have all of the North Central models as I put them back together one by one. You know, guys, I tell you, the process that it took to get all of these has been amazing, and I hope that my documentary of Herman's Odyssey really told an excellent story, because just the way that everything came to be, you know, all the epic moments that occurred during this journey, the highs and also the lows, you know, losing out on a model, or even what happened at the end, just the way that everything lined up. It is unbelievable as to the fact that I finally have this collection all completed, and I certainly wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, this journey has been epic. It's been one hell of a story to tell, and I'm really fortunate to have been able to tell it all here in this video. And, you know, this sucker right here was the nice cherry on top, and it's only fitting because she's really the only one that's that much different, you know, minus like this polished hybrid right here, or even this one, or this one right here. You know, that one there in the back left, that's the one that's most different, and it's only fitting that we ended this story on that. But, you know, it's like it's gonna be like how I talk about in this upcoming section. You know, this story doesn't end here, and I'm certainly eager to continue building this fleet as we move forward. Now, you're probably wondering, what's next? Is this the end of Herman's Odyssey? The answer is no. This journey is far from over. There's still many desirable North Central aircraft I'd love to see made in 1:400 scale. Here are two notable examples. First, a Douglas DC-930 with the gold trim. Debuting in 1967, this original iteration of the Aqua livery featured a gold trim around the cockpit windows extending to aft of the boarding doors, along the bottom of the deep blue cheat line below the Aqua cheat line, and the ring around the Herman on the tail. It astonishes me that no one has done this variant of the Aqua livery in 1:400 scale yet, despite North Central aircraft having been in the scale for over 20 years. I would also like to see a Convair 580 with the same livery too. I passed these suggestions along to Todd from Gemini Jets last summer, so I'm hopeful of them to make magic happen and release either one at some point. The second missing piece is the Douglas DC-3. They wore several liveries, including a pair of interim schemes shortly after rebranding from Wisconsin Central, and 3 feather liveries: original, white top, and modern. If I had to choose one of these feather liveries, I would go with the white top, since it debuted around the same time North Central started flying to Sioux Falls in 1957. However, I would not be opposed to seeing the modern feather livery made too. Furthermore, I wish we could see someone make a Cessna Bobcat and Lockheed 10A Electra in 1:400 scale as well, as these were the first 2 aircraft types that Wisconsin Central/North Central operated. With 3D manufacturers making their presence known in the hobby, I'm counting on them to make both types too. As I said, I'm a patient man for North Central, so take the time you need, manufacturers. Anyways, that will do it for this video. Let me know if you enjoy this, and if you want to see more model airplane content, please subscribe and stay tuned for more content to come. I had a lot of fun making this video, and I hope you had a lot of fun watching this too. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.